All right, Andy, welcome to Kicking Tables. We're so glad to have you on to talk about the Gemshine Pylons. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Now, we are actually very excited to let our viewers know that you want to give away a copy of your game. And
Yeah.
so we are going to have a giveaway for the Gemshine Pylons. You're going to give away a copy of the prototype, like right away,
Yeah.
as well as, if the campaign is successful, a full copy of the game.
Yes.
So everybody give us a like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. Stick around until the end and we'll get into more details on that. But again, Andy, welcome to the show. Tell us all about the Gemshine Pylons. What kind of game is this and how does it play?
Gemshine Pylons is a kind of gateway plus-ish game. It's the overall gameplay is kind of light, but there are still meaningful decisions. There's still some meat to what you're doing, and part of that is because of the multi-use cards. You're buying cards from a central market. And every card can does a couple of things in the game. It has an immediate effect, and then it has representatives at the bottom, which are something that you can use to buy other things and also affect scoring at the end of the game. And so already every card you buy has multiple impacts on your choices, but also the gems that you're using to pay for these cards from the market become available for other people, and they're in different colors, and the colors matter. There's several layers to the choice. So even though the overall turn structure and the choices seem simple and they're easy to execute, the ramifications of those choices can be pretty meaningful. So you can sit down and you can play it as like a light family game, but you can also play it as a meatier game if everybody's on the ball for the day.
That's awesome. So give us a quick overview of what you do in a typical round. What are the players doing?
On your turn, you are either going to be buying a card from a central market. There's a line of cards, and usually you're going to be paying gems for those cards and leaving the gems behind in the market, or you're going to be gathering all the gems that were left behind in the market, plus one, because there's always one sitting in the market to begin with, and then refreshing the market. Or you're playing a card from your hand face down as a pylon. The backs of all the cards are pylons, which is
Okay.
a stone structure with a single gem slot in it that you can put gems in later to score points.
Those are the Gemshine Pylons.
Yes, the Gemshine Pylons.
Awesome. And so
Exactly.
you're trying to gather the most gems by the end of the game and score the most points.
Yes, you're trying to put as many gems into pylons as possible. The idea behind it is that these pylons are providing power to the city, and these gems are magical gems, and you're slotting them in, and different factions want you to use different gems, and so you have to try and cater to who you think is going to be the most in demand faction
Oh, awesome.
at the end of the game.
And
Very
if you
cool.
win, you become mayor of the town because you generated the most power.
You're awarded the town's contract
You get a
for
key to the
making these
city, is what
pylons,
you
let's
get.
say.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Financial rewards abound, is what
Yeah.
happens. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration. Where did you come up with the idea for this game, and multi-use cards and stuff like that? Where did that come from?
Well, I was working for I worked for TC Minstrel Games for about 6 years, and
Okay.
while I was doing that, before I did that, I was doing freelance design stuff, and then while I was working for them, I was doing a lot less design than I had previously, right? Like just because I was part of the job kind of scratched that itch to begin with. And
Yeah.
so in my off time, I was doing a whole lot less of the stuff. But I was I wanted a very clean, simple kind of gateway-ish game, and I basically just started thinking about how I would want that structured and what things I wanted to be in there mechanically. I'm almost always a kind of mechanics first
Okay.
person, and that this is another thing. I was like, okay, well, I want it to be simple. So I'm gonna have you're gonna buy stuff, and the stuff, and it's going to do things, but it can't be too complicated of things. I didn't want a huge amount of interlocking systems. Because I wanted a shortish play time, a reasonable explain time, things like that. And so one of the first things that I came up with that I knew I wanted to do was I wanted to have the base currency in the game be in different colors, different types, and for those types to matter. So even though there are red gems, white gems, and blue gems in the game, and they are all worth 1 gem, and they all buy cards at the same rate, they're worth different amounts of points, and that different amount of points is different from game to game. So I wanted it to matter what you're paying with, not because of its intrinsic purchase value, but because of the other things that were going on in the game. So that was kind of my starting point. And then from there, I wanted to do. I wanted you to have a kind of neat thing that you were building up in front of you, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have these things go on top of the cards and do some other stuff, and very very experiential stuff, right? Like I started with the core little mechanic thing, and then I was like, okay, how do I make the experience work with this mechanic, and maybe it should be worth, before I keep saying gems and stuff, the original version of the game was not the Gemshine Pylons. It was Acorn Court. And you
so
were
you got a different theme out of it.
Yeah, you were squirrels putting nuts in trees and putting little tree houses on top of them.
Okay.
So it's for the vast majority, because again, like I was doing development for TMG, and I was working on this game very slowly, right? Like over the course of about 5 years, and doing play tests here and there and stuff like that with it. And only in the past year and a half have I been more like just like hardcore drilling
focused
on it. And so about a year and a half ago, a little more than a year and a half ago, I knew I needed to retheme the game. Because nobody was like I was like, this is a cute theme, have cute little squirrels, and you're putting the nuts in the trees, and it's a tree with the circular hollow like you see owls in, right? And it's super cute, right? And nobody else agreed with that assessment of what is cute and cool, and so I knew I needed to change it, and so while I was doing play tests, I was asking people what would be themes that you would be more prone to pick up if it was a theme, if this was themed around it. And after I got several good suggestions over the course of a bunch of play tests, I started being like, instead of asking the broad question, being like, okay, would you like this game to be about spaceships and putting cores into spaceships? Would you like this game to be fantasy? You're dwarves or something, and you're putting gems into things and whatnot, and so doing that kind of zoned in on what most people, the majority of people, seemed to want to skew towards.
That's awesome. You also have a solo and a co-op mode available. Why don't you touch on those? How do they differ from the competitive side of things?
Those are the most recent things. Those were when I decided I wanted to do this game for Kickstarter. I was like, oh, okay, well, I want to be able to have it, to pack as much as I can into this box, right? And so in the past year and a half, that's what the majority of playtests have been, because that's what needed the playtesting. And so the solo mode, you're playing against an auto mage, which is a deck of cards with a very small deck of cards with the possible things that the auto mage might do.
Okay.
And on your turn, you're gonna flip, or on his turn, on its turn, you're gonna flip over the top card. You're going to see if it meets those conditions, and if it meets certain conditions, it'll do the action on it. For example, if it was buying a card, it would be like, if you have at least one gem, and there is a card which provides pylons, you will buy the leftmost card in the market that provides pylons.
Okay.
Right. And if you don't meet that condition, you flip over the next card, and you keep going until he either does something or you go through the whole deck. If you go through the whole deck, there's a default action for the automage.
Okay.
And so you're playing against this. It is a two-player game, but the second player has this slightly uncertain behavior going on because of the deck flipping, and there's actually so there's a set of easy cards and a set of hard cards, and you can mix and match. So let's say you start with these easy cards and you're like, I want it to be a little bit harder. You would swap out a couple of those cards.
I got you.
Or if you wanted it to be just extremely hard, so you can adjust the level of difficulty. And to be clear, it's if you play with all of the hard cards, the AI is basically going to be cheating, and you are probably going to lose. So
wait, are you saying the AI is Tico? Because it cheats?
Hey,
wow,
don't get caught.
That's.
But so that's the solo mode. It's basically a two-player game where it's got this adjustable AI to it. And then I also knew I wanted the co-op mode to be different from the solo mode. I didn't want it to be just you're doing the same thing as that, and I wanted it to be not exactly the base game either, right? Like I wanted them to be very, very distinct feels to them. So co-op mode, you're playing against rogue factions, and you choose a number of cards to shuffle into the main deck, which are these rogue faction cards, and you're playing the game, but you are all working together to score as many points as possible and not lose to the rogue factions. Okay. When the rogue faction cards come up during the game, they go into the center of the table, and there's a cost to remove them, which on your turn you can pay the cost to remove it, which is discarding gems or pylons or toppers or whatever, or representatives. And while they are in play, at the beginning of each player's turn, you'll tuck a card from the top of the deck underneath the rogue faction.
Okay.
At the end of the game, if there's still rogue factions in play, their cards will contribute to the end scoring. So they make scoring less certain at the end. But importantly, in addition to choosing how many cards you're playing with, you're also choosing a difficulty level, which is how many cards it takes for of these rogue factions to be in play. It takes for you to lose the game. So, for example, if you set the difficulty level to 4, if you ever had 4 rogue factions in play
game
at one time, you everybody loses together.
Wow, you have really come up with such a unique solo and co-op mode. Like, it feels like it's a completely different game. Like, that's really brilliant.
I wanted people to feel like there was a lot in the box, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to sit down and I'm sure that there are plenty of people who would be looking only for the co-op or only for the solo, but I feel like a lot of people will play some of those, we'll play several of those overlapping, right? Especially with the pandemic stuff, right? Like the likelihood of people playing a solo mode on a game has increased quite a bit.
Big time,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us, new players picking this up, how difficult are they going to find balancing, the concept of building pylons and trading gems and cards? How difficult will all 3 actions come to versus the end game? Like, is it going to be an easy thing for people to pick up?
So I think once you play through like 2 turns of the game, you just it's really easy to understand what you're doing in the game, and then at the end of the game, you will at the end of your first game, you will probably be like, oh, I was an idiot. I should have done X, Y, Z. Right?
That's me. And that is me all the time, right, Tico? I'm like, okay, now I see what I did wrong. I should have been doing this.
Yeah, I usually notice when you're doing it wrong and decide not to tell you.
Obviously.
That goes back to the cheating. That's not cheating, but
It's not
But,
cheating. That's game theory. That's just playing smart.
yeah. So, but yeah, I think that it is just one of those things where I want the on ramp into the game to be easy, but definitely for you to learn and get better as you go.
The
right.
And
strategy develops as you learn the game.
yeah, and even some of my playtesters who have played it in several of the iterations and have played a good amount of the games, some of them are still getting better at doing certain things, and in particular things like you can keep track in your head of all these cards that people have been taking, right?
Hmm.
But you're certainly not doing that in your first game, and you're probably not doing that in your fifth game. You probably have this rough idea, but you get better at it, and you get better at doing things like realizing you need to pivot to a different color, or pivot to the idea of trying to buy a bunch of decorations because you don't think you can pivot to a different color of gem. So you're just like, okay, we're going for a bunch of representatives so I can just get decorations on these things for their flat points instead,
Yeah.
right? So things like that. There's because of the layers of the choices, there's a very, I think, a very interesting learning curve, right? Like I said, I want the on ramp to be very easy, but I think the curve up is interesting.
Well, let's talk
Um,
about some things that may not have been easy during development. What did you find was the most difficult thing to balance or to actually get right as you were playtesting the game?
Um, so there were a couple of things. The decorations went through a lot of different iterations. There are points at which they provided different player powers. There are points that they didn't have extra slots on them. That just like lots of different things with that. And then and to go along with that, the distribution of cards in the deck in general, like how much of what is provided in the deck, how many things provide pylons versus allowing you to put in gems versus
Yeah.
allowing you to have decorations. And
How do you decide those kind of things? Do you have spreadsheets? Do you like, are you crunching numbers? How do you decide what that balance feels like and how many there should be?
so usually that kind of thing, you're paying attention on a game to game basis to when people hit those walls, right? And
Okay.
Yeah.
this game, it's easier than some games to see that somebody wants pylons, for example, or wants to slot a bunch of red gems. Because, for example, if you have no pylons, you clearly want some pylons. If you have a whole bunch of red gems, you clearly want something that'll let you put those gems into the pylons, right? Like so.
Yeah.
Some games it's harder, and you need to be very specific up front with the players that you want them to vocalize when they're what they're looking for,
Ah, okay.
and when they are having difficulties, right?
So you
And
want
ask
them
them.
to talk it out as they're playing
Yes,
through a
exactly,
playtest. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
exactly. This game was a little easier than most in that respect because you really can just watch it and you can see where when people run into those bumps and how often that happens. And one of the things that's common, or that was common, is that people would feel like they wanted to put more decorations on their things, and the reality is that at this point you can pretty much decorate almost everything that you put a gem in. It's just not the right choice
It's
all the
not going to
time.
be the best
Yeah,
strategy all the time.
Yeah.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your Kickstarter. Do you have any stretch goals planned for your campaign? Maybe any expansion packs that you might want to tell us about?
Well, so I wanted to have all the core content available from the beginning. I wanted it to
Okay.
feel
Yeah.
like a complete thing, right? Like I could
Yeah.
have. So I'm going to have acrylic gems from the get-go, co-op mode, and solo mode from the get-go,
Nice.
and those are things that would more traditionally be in stretch goals. But
The
I was
add-ons. Yeah.
just like, I think people want these in to begin with, and we'll see if I'm proven wrong or right. but so the stretch goals are things like making things a little nicer, slightly nicer cardstock, a bag to pull gems out of instead of the box to pull gems out of,
Okay.
and things like that is what I'm looking at as stretch goals. So things that are not necessary to the experience, but are just a little bit nicer.
Awesome. Now, before we let you go, Andy, give us the elevator pitch. Why should we buy the Gemshine Pylons?
Because it's a lot of game in a small box. It scratches a lot of different itches, and it works with mixed groups, right? Like you can have some people who are very gamery playing with people who are less gamery, and it still works out. Everybody can still do what they're doing and enjoy the game. You can build up things that are cool in front of you, but nobody should feel left out from the things. Nobody should feel like they're being horribly stomped, even if
Right.
that's kind of the case.
Awesome. And a gamery is now officially a word.
Yes.
We declare it right here on Kicking Tables, gamery. This is we got to use that somehow.
Get a
Andy,
hashtag.
Andy, it's been so great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for doing the giveaway with us as well. So those of you who want to get a copy of the prototype, which is available now, as well as a copy of the full game if it gets funded, then give us a like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. We are gonna choose a winner halfway through the campaign. And we have to unfortunately limit it to North America, the EU, and England. So if you are in those territories, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and you may win a copy of the Gemshine Pylons. Andy, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with your campaign.
Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to check out the Gemshine Pylons on Kickstarter. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe down below.